Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Lauren Castelino, and I'll be sharing with you about how I turned a project with funding from Rising Youth into a federally registered nonprofit organization. I did learn a ton along the way, including building a team, and I came across various project management tools that really helped me communicate with my team given this virtual era. With the pandemic and everything being switched online, having access to these tools is essential. So I'm really excited to be sharing with you my tips and tricks for how to set up and gain access to these free tools. And before I start, I just want to have a really quick land acknowledgement. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar, although virtually, in what is currently known as Markham, Ontario. It is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So just to learn a little bit more about me, jumped ahead there, and how I started, I just want to take you back to when I was 15 years old and I was going through a lot in my life. I felt very excluded at school, and people used to bully me because I was a bit of a nerd. I also tried tirelessly to get involved in my school community and make a difference, but I could never get accepted into any council. From there, I developed a fiery entrepreneurial spirit and really developed a drive that I could do anything I put my mind to. So for a summer, I kickstarted an all natural skincare line called Naturally Beautiful, and I developed soaps and all other sorts of skincare products. And I really had a blast with all aspects involved in running a sole proprietor business. And I absolutely loved what I was doing. Fast forward to the end of high school, when I was really tired of my school's cafeteria food, and also inspired by a lot of environmental documentaries. I co-founded my school's eco club, and while I was at it, I took on a lot of other initiatives like securing funding to start an organic garden, even from taking it global, and leading a sustainable fashion show. I also took advantage of a ton of other opportunities outside of my school, including running events with a grassroots organization called Global Figure. So with my experiences in high school and just general involvement, I knew I didn't want everything to just end there. Um, so I sought to create a cause that would combine both of my passions for the environment and entrepreneurship. And from that, Pitch It Green was born. Initially, we started off by selling products made from local and sustainable entrepreneurs, which we called ecopreneurs. So this kind of like manifested itself in a box, and you can kind of see that photo of me holding up that box. That was the ecopreneur box. So we did this for about a year, like selling different products and stuff. But then we hosted our first event, the sustainability pitch, where young people got to pitch a business idea, like sustainability focused, in front of judges, and they got to receive prizes. And so after the super successful event, we then realized that there was more demand and I guess just more interest in an events-based organization. So we then pivoted and focused on an updated mission, which is to build the next generation of ecopreneurs by providing them with necessary tools to equally embrace environmentalism and entrepreneurship. So with this change in direction, it required us to have a lot more of a bigger team to manage our events. And so our biggest event was our Green Business Conference. And with that, we of course needed a really dedicated team of volunteers to run. So at the time, my partner and I recruited any interested volunteers in the summer through an application and interview process. But just given my high school experience, the fact that I was excluded from participating in a lot of these initiatives due to like super competitive processes, I really made sure that I gave a shot to anyone who showed passion, regardless of any of their qualifications or lack thereof. And I think this is something I encourage everyone to do, since just from what I've learned in life, some of us are burdened with unfortunate lived experiences and circumstances. So just because one person has a qualification over another person, or even like, I guess when it comes to titles too, um, it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have what it takes to get the job done. So just ultimately give people a chance. Another thing that really helped me get started was having an advisor who had experience in the industry before. So he helped me by reaching out to connections in his own network, specifically with a professor at his former university. It really actually did help get a lot of students interested, which I wouldn't have been able to have done myself since I went to a different university and I was studying something completely different. So I didn't know anyone interested in the environment. My advisor also helped me learn how to conduct interviews and emails, and he just, in general, corrected me when I made any mistakes. Um, and I'd also highly suggest reaching out to anyone to be like an advisor or mentor if you need any advice in starting your nonprofit. But like looking back at it, there's a lot that I would do differently, including valuing lived experiences, understanding people's abilities, disabilities, and culture. Um, for example, opening up recruitment to alternative ways of receiving information, such as through like the creation of like a video or something, answering questions, being more creative. Since like throughout my journey, even in university, I've realized that the way that we learn or like the way that's generally accepted by society is not always like the way that people can learn. Like I would say that even with myself. Um, Back now and even then, I totally say I hate tokenism, but I still think it's really important to have diversity on any team and appreciate various perspectives, even if you might like completely disagree with the person. This is also why I think like when you're conducting interviews, you should totally have another person there as well, so you don't succumb to your own biases. You want other people's perspectives as well. Um, and something else I think is absolutely essential is having orientation. So something that we did at our first orientation was just give a presentation on who we are, where we want to be. We also gave everyone a contract to sign to outline our expectations, and we even ended the orientation with some really cool team building activities so everyone could like get to know one another and bond a little bit. Um, like again, in retrospect, things could have been done a little bit more differently, like having an oral agreement. But I think like in terms of team accountability, a lot of the team members appreciated having a written agreement or something to sign since like they could actually follow through with what they said they were going to do. So a huge step in general with Budget Green was registering us as a nonprofit organization. So I decided to actually register Pitchy Green federally since I wasn't so sure if our efforts would remain concentrated in Ontario or if our scope would possibly expand throughout Canada. And honestly, this whole process seemed easier to do federally. And I didn't do a great deal of research on how it would work out provincially. Um, but I just, in general, think that you should do what's best for your organization and your plans. Um, so the first step I would suggest in registering a nonprofit organization, whether federal or provincial, is to speak to someone who's done it before. And if you're lucky, a lawyer. So I reached out to some nonprofit founders and got some tips. What was also super helpful was getting a peek at the articles of incorporation. Sorry, so this is essentially the rules and laws of the nonprofit organization. And you could get this from people you know, but just keep in mind that the articles are kind of like sensitive in nature since it has everyone's like home address on it and stuff. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But it really did help the team filter out what we thought was useful and including in our like documentation and stuff or what we wanted to take out. But as it stands, like on the Corporations Canada website, you can actually request these articles of incorporation. I think this was recently just put into effect. Um, while you're also in the process of registering your nonprofit federally, you also have to have an office address, like I mentioned before. But just keep in mind that it can't be a post office box, um, but it is permissible to be an office address. Sorry, a residential address. So like where you live, like at your house. Other nonprofit founders that I know have office addresses at different co-working spaces, such as at the Center of Social Innovation in Toronto, same with like Make Lemonade. Um, and another thing that you have to do is gather and disclose the legal names and office addresses of the directors of an organization. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. Just like the home addresses of the directors. Um, and so the directors have a huge responsibility over the organization. And so with that comes with certain requirements that you have to fulfill. So to be a director, you have to be at least 18 years old. You can't be declared incapable under the laws of a Canadian province or territory or by court in a jurisdiction outside of Canada. You have to be an individual, so you can't be a corporation, and you can't be in bankrupt status. So those are just the requirements set out on the Corporations Canada website. And to continue with that, sorry, there's like a huge list that you have to kind of follow. But 25% of the directors need to be resident Canadians. The terms of the directors can be up to 3 years, and the terms can also be set out in something called bylaws. But bylaws are really long and kind of complicated, so they deserve another webinar unto itself. And in terms of the number of directors, generally a corporation must have at least one director. However, a soliciting corporation must have a minimum of 3 directors, at least 2 of whom must not be officers or employees of the corporation or its affiliates. So just to explain, I guess, the difference between a soliciting corporation and non-soliciting is that a soliciting corporation has received more than $10,000 in income from public sources in a single financial year. So that's it. But throughout the process itself, like while you're registering, just keep in mind that it's not for free. You actually have to pay a $200 fee to Corporations Canada. But luckily with Pitch It Green, I was able to cover the registration fee through an award that I'd won. But I guess it depends on your organization, but there's just always other ways to fundraise. So once you're done all these steps, you're pretty much all good to go. But keep in mind though, every year you're gonna have to file your annual return. This includes updating your office address and any director information. Yay, sorry, that was super long. So once you're recognized as being a registered nonprofit organization, there are a ton of free project management tools that you can take advantage of. First is Slack, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It serves as a messaging platform where you can easily connect with your team, communicate through channels, and those channels can be divided into subtopics like marketing or a specific event that you're running, or even random stuff where you can like bond over different cat gifts or whatever. And then another essential project management tool is Google Workspace for nonprofits. So this is essentially your emailing system and where you can take advantage of other apps, including Google Meet, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Forms, YouTube, and like the list goes on, honestly. Another great feature with this tool is the ability to get your own domain without having to pay money for it. So of course, like you're gonna have to pay money for your domain name when you set up your website, but the entire Google Workspace for nonprofits email accounts that you set up would be completely for free once you get that done. So that is like super awesome because I know that there are plenty of other like nonprofits that don't know about this and they actually end up paying money. So yeah, but anyway, there are a ton of different tools to use. So first, let's talk about getting set up on something called TechSoup. Since this is a channel that will let you gain access to other project management tools absolutely for free. So the first step is that you sign up on their website. It's www.techsoup.ca/user/register. Note that you have to register as an individual first, and then you register your organization. I actually didn't know this at first, but yeah, just looking back, like I've kind of corrected all that I did wrong. But anyway, so once you do that, and in order to finish the process, you have to email TechSoup with your articles of incorporation, which you should have received when you registered your nonprofit. And then the final steps include verifying your email and then gaining access to a validation token, which will help you get verified as a legit organization when you contact other companies to get free or discounted services. So I know my explanation was a little bit short, but if you want to read more about this in depth, you can visit TechSoup's website on their How to Register page for more information. Now, having signed up for TechSoup, there's plenty of ways that you can actually put it to use. Like I mentioned before, one of these tools is Google Workspace for nonprofits, where you can create professional email accounts at your nonprofit's domain, like in my case at pitchitgreen.org, for an unlimited amount of users. At the time of this recording of the webinar, other features in their free plan include having video meetings with a maximum amount of 100 participants, 30 gigabytes of free storage, which by the way is like double the amount for regular at gmail.com accounts. And as I already mentioned earlier, you get access to all of Google Workspace's apps, including Drive, Forms, Docs, Sheets, and much, much more. So I was just in general like super thrilled to figure this out because it looks so much more professional, right? So to get started, just go to the link that I've put in the slide, google.com/nonprofits/offering/workspace, and click on the button on the top right-hand corner that reads Get Started. Usually it's in blue, so just keep that in mind. And then after you do this, it will prompt you to fill out a form. Like it's kind of like a button, like you click Next after you fill out stuff. And then while you're actually filling out that form, it will ask you to add in a validation token from TechSoup. And then at this point, I also remember emailing Google after a few days, waiting for my activation request just to go through. And they responded, which was great. And I was good to go with adding other users to my account through the admin panel, which essentially means I created customized email addresses for everyone on the Pitch It Green team. And during this period of time, I was in the free trial phase where I got access to Google for nonprofits for 14 days. So I was only allowed to add 10 additional users, but in order to activate the full service, you have to verify your domain. So Google will essentially give you a piece of code that you put on your website, and it verifies that you own it. You're not taking anyone else's. But it's absolutely crucial that you do this, since if you don't, your accounts will all be suspended and everything that you've done will like go to waste pretty much. But if you have followed all these steps, you're pretty much all set and ready to go. So one of my tips, I guess, I would share as well, and that I highly recommend, is taking advantage and creating shared drives. And you can see what shared drives looks like, or even like the storage that you get in the graphic to the right. If I put that there correctly, yes, there it is. So shared drives allows you to store over 400,000 files, and they aren't owned by an individual, rather it's the organization that owns it, which means that if someone leaves your organization and their account is suspended, their files remain with the organization. So that's such a huge plus, honestly, because when there's turnover and stuff, like you try to figure out where that file went and stuff, and you're like, oh, I don't know where it is, or they deleted it, right? But anyway, it's a really great benefit. And another benefit is that there is more, I guess, a focus on the number of files that you upload rather than the amount of space it takes up, which is super useful, especially like when you're, I guess, like putting together a video when you want to upload different photos and like video clips. Since honestly, like there's so many like places that you just can't store stuff like that. It takes up too much space, like because the files are just so huge. But with shared drives, it's truly a blessing to have that. And the final project management tool I'll share with you is Slack, which is great for messaging members of your organization while keeping messages organized for channels, as you can see with the purple graphic that I have there. Slack does provide a free account option, but there are limits, including the ability to search the most recent 10,000 messages with only 10 integrations with other tools. On the other hand, Slack's standard subscription is usually $666 US per month. But being a nonprofit organization and validated through TechSoup, you can fill out the form on their website, which I wrote on the slide, and you should get approved in 3 business days. So once that's done, you're free to explore all the new features you have with Slack, including the ability to have searchable access to all of your organization's messages. You can also use Google authentication. You have, I guess, an unlimited amount of integration with like different apps like Zoom and the like. And you also have Slack Connect, where you can invite external people outside of your organization to your Slack channel. So if you're doing any like collaborations and stuff. And there are plenty of other additional features too, but I'll just leave that up to you to explore. So to recap my webinar, just network and find people to support you. So find like a mentor or advisor who can give you advice and really help you like figure out how to navigate the nonprofit space. Like by now you should also be pretty familiar with how to federally register your nonprofit organization, as well as take advantage of any free project management tools, including Google Workspace for nonprofits, and even how to get Slack standard subscription for nonprofits absolutely for free. And finally, I would encourage you to believe in yourself, since your motivation can bring great positive change into the world. And if you're just curious about what Pitch It Green is and a little bit more about what we're up to, keep in the loop by following us on social media at Pitch It Green on all of our channels pretty much. And this is my last slide, I think. Ooh, I love it. So if you have any questions, comments, or just anything in general that you want to reach out and talk to me about, feel free to contact me. I have my email address there as well as my LinkedIn. But keep in mind with LinkedIn, I don't accept everyone. So just be sure to put in like a personalized note saying like, that you watched my webinar. But yeah, I'm happy to help out in any way that I can. And thank you so much for listening, everyone. I really hope that by watching our webinar, you're able to take your project to the next level. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye. Where